Good morning, everybody, and welcome again to another WealthTech Talks from the Wealth Mosaic. My name is Stephen Wall, co-founder of the Wealth Mosaic, and I will be moderating today's session. I'm joined by Chris Fragu, who is Business Development Manager of Profile Software. Morning, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
I'll ask Chris to give a more detailed introduction to himself in a moment. We're actually had a few technical difficulties this morning, and Ian Woodhouse, Head of Strategy and Change at Orbium, now part of Accenture, should be joining us. I think he just has a couple of technical issues, so we'll hopefully welcome Ian on board in a minute. Otherwise, the topic today is automation and COVID. How have wealth managers responded? So, well, we don't need to remind anyone, do we, of the pandemic and all of the things that it has impacted in our lives. Obviously, in the wealth management sector, there's been significant change to and adaptation to this new normal, not being able to meet clients, not being able to be in the office. So many things that were done in person and collectively have now been done or have to be done remotely. Firms have had to really shift quickly how they engage clients, how they manage clients, how they manage staff, and different things. So Chris is going to give us a little bit of the view of profile there, and then we'll move into some structured conversation. So we'll look at things like the backdrop and the status. You know, why is automation now a topic? Is it new to the industry? Then we'll look at some of the focus, challenges, and opportunities across this topic, considering how wealth managers are challenged by this and what things they might be able to do if they do respond well. Then we'll look at a little bit at action, delivery, and success. And finally, if we have time, a look at the future views. So we've scheduled the session for 60 minutes. So Chris and I will have this conversation for the next 45 minutes or 40 minutes or so. But first of all, Chris, if I can hand over to you. You're going to present on the topic, give a little bit of an overview of profile and yourself, and start us off in terms of Profile's view on the topic and some of the issues to consider. So if I just hand over to you, Chris, I'll let you run through the slides.
Thank you, Stephen. Are the slides, first of all, visible to everyone? Yeah, that's great. And thanks for the opportunity to speak on this subject with a number of industry leaders here. And Profile Software is well, first of all, let me talk about myself very quickly. I am Business Development Manager of Profile Software, and my experience is, my career has been across financial services for a number of years, also technology strategy, and also management consulting. In terms of Profile Software, Profile is a company with more than 30 years experience in the financial technology area, and a global company with offices across 10 locations and local presence in 45 countries. A significant number of organizations that have trusted Profile Software with their technology solutions and their business with us. And our client retention rate is very strong. Essentially, our clients are very, very happy with their solutions, the platforms, and the tools we provide them. And that is reflected by a number of industry reviews that are very positive on our solutions. I will briefly give you an overview of the areas that our company operates in. And it's the wider range of financial services solutions that focus, starting from core banking, from digital, but also treasury management services, fund management, wealth. It's a wide range, and we have three core areas, three geographies that we have a number of our headquarters that is in Paris, in the Nordics, and in Athens, across a number of other locations. And our solutions range from large institutions to small, medium-sized, down to family offices. It's not specific to one financial industry segment or the other. Right? It's very wide range and in depth. Okay. Now, in terms of our technologies, we have been working in wealth management for the best part of the last 30 years. So the platforms that we have put together, the solutions, the technology that we use, the technologies that we built are built bottom up from the point of view of the wealth management business, from the point of view of the asset management business, of the investment management business, right? And our view, our experience in the industry has given us an advantage in terms of understanding both the day-to-day business problems and strategy that needs to be addressed by the wealth management industry, but also the latest technologies and how to use them, how to bring automation, how to bring the cloud capability into the wealth management industry. Now, automation is not done for the sake of automation, right? And we understand that in the wealth management industry, there are certain sort of drivers and there are certain boundaries. So automation, it can be used not just for the sake of automation, but for driving productivity. That would be the primary driver in today's environment, because the challenges are specific, and in the last year or 2 years, especially with the pandemic and with the facing the challenge that we have to work remotely with our clients, that has offered us that has presented a lot of issues. Okay, the customer experience element that automation provides an opportunity in is that a lot of our customers now interact remotely with the business. So allowing more time to the resources, to the people that work in wealth management to do value add work rather than repetitive tasks, and refocus their attention to the client is paramount. Okay. Now, being able to scale this and in the journey of business growth, because today there is a certain size of business and tomorrow that might multiply. This is another very important area, and automation and machine learning and artificial intelligence and cloud-enabled technologies can give us the opportunity to optimize operations and make operations more agile. Profile has been investing continuously in R&D. So we know the business of wealth management very well from the ground up. We know the technology, and we have seen the opportunity, and we apply the opportunity of automation to solve a number of business problems. I'm not going to keep you with much more sort of introduction to this, and I will be happy to take a sort of interactive conversation, number of questions from Stephen and with Ian when he joins us.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that. I hope Ian's all right. He hasn't joined yet, so apologies.
Let's hope, yeah.
For that. Fingers crossed he'll join. If he doesn't, let's just keep the conversation going as best we can. So, Chris, obviously, COVID has had a significant impact across all of our lives, right? And we all know that. We've all had to adapt. Wealth managers specifically have had a particularly dynamic, very face-to-face, very relationship-driven, a conservative industry, as we know, for significant and important reasons. How in general would you say we've arrived now at the point that automation is a topic? So if you look at the backdrop, what's brought the market to this point? So yes, there's COVID, but what other aspects would you say have made automation a topic for the industry to consider?
Thank you for that question, because I don't just see the pandemic as the sole driver, the sole pressure. Yes, it is a compelling event. It is something that has affected the wider society and how we do business. And remoteness is a headline. question mark. Wealth management traditionally relies on the direct and intimate relationship with the client. The client is, the wealth manager is very close to their clients, and now we've had with the pandemic the challenge that the client is not next to us. We cannot access the client directly. Interaction is problematic, so technology comes in to solve a number of problems, maybe provide opportunities in this area. However, another area I see is that given the turmoil in the markets that was sort of instigated by the huge changes and explosive disruptions of the pandemic, the actual markets have gone up and down, the different asset classes have changed, and there is the sense of a change in the attitude or in the behavior of the end customer. More frequent trading, more different demands from their managers, from their wealth managers, from their investment managers, to take different positions or more frequent. So again, more workload on the side of the manager, with less capability, less again direct access to the end customer. The other area is potentially, I see that there is a certain pressure from supervisory and regulatory from that angle, in terms of maintaining data, being a custodian of data, securing data, everything in pretty much a digital form. So I see three sort of areas of pressure or pressure of opportunity, again, that present themselves in this picture. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, great. Perfect. What about COVID specifically? So what have you seen COVID do? Obviously, COVID's kind of driving automation, or at least driving digitalization. Have you seen wealth managers sort of move to become more automated, to beyond communication tools and things like that?
Yes, but let's look at the wider financial industry. There are trends in there, both at the technology level and the asset class level and the markets level. Right? Again, traditionally, asset managers or wealth managers are more careful because it's a more conservative industry in the positive meaning of the word, not managing other people's money. So traditionally, wealth management has been more reluctant to go with the latest trends and the latest sort of fashions in terms of technology. Now, this is not the latest trend anymore. This is a set of technologies that are mature and have proven themselves in a number of industries, right? And the way we see it is that if they are applied and implemented in a careful and wise way, they can provide a lot of opportunity, solve a lot of problems, automate things, remove repetitive tasks, reduce errors, release resources and humans to talent to spend more time on value-add functions. Okay.
Perfect. Do you think the industry is au fait with what automation is? I mean, does it have the right perspective of what it is and why it should be relevant, or is there still some learning for the industry to do in terms of what they think it is and actually what it is or could be for them?
I think that's a great question. Thanks for it. I think pretty much every industry has still a learning curve in this space. Okay, the notion of automation is not something that everybody understands in the same way. Okay, to some people is this, and to some other people is something else. But the wider concept of automation, I think, is accepted and felt in the wealth management industry. Okay, people understand that there are opportunities there with the right technologies to solve a number of problems and to create value for their businesses, right?
Okay.
So,
and yeah, sorry.
Yeah, in terms of a short answer to that, because we could be talking about this, and there are different sort of definitions of what automation is. Is it business process automation? It is several layers. Yeah.
So what kind of examples would you give us in terms of where automation could be applied in the wealth industry, and what tools are relevant? What kind of, as we talk about RPA, we talk about intelligent automation, we talk about digital workers, all of these sort of things. Are there particular use cases, clear areas where this can be applied?
There are, absolutely. In terms of management of client data, in terms of onboarding, that is a huge area that presents a lot of automation opportunity these days, because identity, human identity is reflected into the digital world, and it becomes more efficient and more reliable to use technology to verify identity and bring in the customer into the fold of a certain service, right? Business process automation or robotic process automation are two areas that can also be of use in this industry, in the sense that there are back office processes, there are reporting processes that need to be managed and provide outputs, and often there is opportunity there to remove a lot of human intervention. But let me take a break. Ian is with us.
Indeed. Hi, Ian.
Hello. I'm sorry I couldn't join you. I had terrible troubles with the system and getting in, but I think I'm back up and running now. So apologies for being late to join the party, but I'm here now, so I'm happy to help in any way. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Ian. And apologies if the system was tormenting you.
Yes.
So, Ian, we were just running through some of the background. So,
yes.
Really, the backdrop, the drivers, the status, why automation is now relevant. Can we just come back to that with you? So, why, we've got COVID, yes. Why, in general, is automation a topic for the wealth management industry today?
Okay, so I would look at it from a pre-COVID, where we are now and where we're going in the future. So I would say the first thing is pre-COVID, the wealth management industry was relatively underinvested in automation. It's generally been a face-to-face and bespoke type business. So pre-COVID, we were underinvested in automation. What then happened was COVID came in, and then we had to work very quickly remote. So there were lots of tactical maneuvers, people getting into this ability to interact with clients remotely. And also we had a second big issue, which was the markets were very volatile. So the volumes started to peak at tremendous levels. What that meant was also, because of the underinvestment in automation, a number of platforms couldn't keep pace, if you remember, and had to be closed, shut down, which led the regulators to look at operational resiliency. So I think in the COVID, it's two areas. It's that remote client interaction, and then the other areas that is operational resilience, and both of those have driven the demand for automation. Now, going forward, the demand for automation is going to get greater because you've got behavioral needs are changing with clients. So by what I mean by that is, everyone is looking now towards ESG, responsible investing, impact investing. There's a trend towards advice. And all of this means that there's going to be a greater need for automation, but it's going to swing to the front office and the portfolio management areas. That in a nutshell is the way automation is unfolded. So think of it in those three sort of phases, and we're moving from the COVID phase, which is tactical, into the more strategic use of automation, which is what I would call going forward post-COVID.
Yeah, fantastic. Chris, I'll just stick with Ian for a minute, if you don't mind. Ian, given that it's been tactical, but it's now moving towards strategic, and obviously therefore will be fundamental to business, do you think the industry is aware of what, does it conceptually realize what automation is, or is there still learning around what it is and where it's best applied, and therefore how they should move forward? Or are they actually pretty much on top of what they need to be doing?
Well, I think in reality it depends on different markets. So I mean, one of the things, being with Orbium, which is now part of Accenture, we have this sort of global, or I have this global kind of remit. So I look across the US markets, I look across Europe, and I look across the Far East. What you're seeing is the US market is probably more advanced in this because they were less underinvested in automation pre-COVID. So generally, the US industry was able to adapt more rapidly, and also has been more strategic in its approach. Now, in Europe, there's big differences between the wealth players. If you look at the benchmarks, there are bigger gaps in performance between players in Europe than there are in, say, the US or other markets. So I would say Europe was maybe a little bit behind the curve, shall we say, but it's catching up fast.
Okay, fantastic. So let's look a little bit at the challenges. So firms want to add automation to their business. Chris, where do you say they start? Well, they want to. What are the low-hanging fruits here for them to look at first of all?
That's a very good question. I think we alluded to one, and in terms of sort of the front end of the process of interacting and capturing client, or improving the information held about the client by the wealth manager. That is to a large extent the onboarding process. In terms of then past the onboarding process, and once the client is in the sort of system or in our business, interaction with the client is another low-hanging fruit, I would say.
Traditionally, automation comes from, I would say, the bottom up. So back office functions, processes, reports, and all that wonderful stuff, that has been traditionally automated or attempted to be automated by a number of systems and across a number of industries, and that's not wealth management is not an exception. So I would say these sort of the front end, the interaction, sort of the middle end, the real interaction with the client is another low hanging fruit. The back office is, I would say, a little, and Ian can add to this, is a little bit more mature in terms of the opportunity and the history of processes and automation capabilities within the industry.
Okay,
I think
Ian.
the tactical view that Ian mentioned is very important, because across industries, again, the tactical often precedes the strategic, in the sense that there is a need, there is a tactical immediate pressure to start using some new tools to solve a new challenge or a bigger challenge, right? And then that becomes embedded into the reflexes of the organization. And then people start thinking, how can we use this in terms of improving our strategic business? So I think that's absolutely a low-hanging fruit, or a maturing fruit at least. Yeah.
Sure. Ian, I don't know if you can add to that, if there are other areas you think of. Also, one of the things that you talk about, tactical focus, I wonder, is there a danger of tactical focus just continuing to roll on? It's a continual reaction to market pressures, market demands, regulation, changing client expectations. Do they ever get to the point where they think about this strategically, or can they get to that point?
Yes, I mean, I think it's different this time around. What's happened with COVID, and I think a big result of COVID is the increase in speed. So you know, I think there are various comments, aren't there, in the press, you know, that we've had I don't know, 5 years of change in 1 year or whatever, or in a few months. But actually the speed, you know, we're in an era of what we would call compressed change. So I think that will drive people to look, and I think automation is, you know, it has been seen to be more effective when it works front to back. Now, what the problem for most wealth managers is still operating in silos. So they think of the back office, they think of the middle office, and, you know, you think of the front office. Now, that's going to have to change because automation is increasingly front to back. And then in addition to that, data becomes much more important, because I need more data going forward than I have in the past. Now, the good news is the technologies will now allow for these more joined up or aligned front to back models. I'm thinking about artificial intelligence, I'm thinking about machine learning, and I'm thinking also about cloud. So what's happened is, or what's happening is, your traditional back office is becoming lean and automated, and you know, Europeans have invested in replacing core banking or core platforms, but then what's happened is we're having to put what I would call a strategic or a front to back view on top of those platforms. So that's manifested in two big areas. First is the front office, which is becoming increasingly a combination of face, or will be a combination of face-to-face and digital remote interaction post-COVID, when we're all back to some degree of face-to-face contact. But the other big area is the product and solution area, because that product and solution area, particularly on the investment side, is becoming much more complex, because not only do you have ESG, responsible investing, impact investing, but you also have the rise of new asset classes. So you think about private assets or digital assets. So, you know, I think this time we're actually at an inflection point. And what you're starting to see, certainly in some markets, is the gap between the leadership players and the laggards is widening for the first time. So I think all of these things will combine to drive this more, I would call it more aligned or integrated front to back transformation is probably the word to use.
Yeah, perfect. Chris, I presume, or I shouldn't presume, should I? But potentially Profile would see a similar kind of reflection in the market from its engagement with clients. So this sort of consolidated technology stack that services the entire business's front to back.
Absolutely, yes. And our traditional, approach to the industry and to the platform and to the solution within this space, I can safely say that it's always been front to back from our point of view. So the way we designed we design our platforms and systems is completely integrated and allows for essentially the choice of the end customer to enable certain elements within the platform, okay? Depending on how the business works. If the business is not as mature or as sort of front to back operating today in a completely integrated way, they can still sort of use certain elements. And with one deployment, with a single sort of technology challenge, not having to connect a number of systems and build a patchwork of things, right? But bottom up is our understanding of how the business works and how we solve the problem, and front to back is how the our actual technology works.
Ian, the way you put it across sounded wonderful and quite easy, right? So you have your core platform, you have maybe a data layer or a customer experience layer, and then you have the front office and the products, and the data flows nicely between them. We all know, of course, that the industry finds it much harder to deliver that sort of perfect view or that modern view. What are you mentioned silos, and you mentioned data being in different places, and you've mentioned perhaps firms operating on older systems, or they haven't renewed core platforms. What are the core challenges that you see firms facing in delivering this future model or this modern model where automation is embedded? What challenges do they run into?
Well, I think the first challenge is understanding the changing client needs for a wealth manager, because we're in an era of intergenerational change. We're in an era where there are more women with wealth. We're in an era where the entrepreneurs are being created at a faster rate in history than any time before. So basically the traditional client base is fragmenting, and each of those client segments, and there are more and more of them coming, they all have different needs. So the first point is that the wealth managers need to understand their changing client base and the changing client needs. And I say this because we're doing a lot of work with looking at the voice of the client, and what you find from talking to the clients is there's a mismatch between what the wealth manager thinks the clients want and what the clients themselves actually want. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second one is something you alluded to, which is still there's a lot of legacy debt in terms of fragmented operations and systems. That's coming down, but it's still there. So it takes a while to overcome that. And I think another big thing that, or topic that we're seeing is the culture change or mindset change, because the advisors are having to work in new ways. Not they have to deal with different clients, as I mentioned before, but they also have to oftentimes deal with now operating remotely, and to cap it all, they're dealing with new technology tools. And the thing is that it's adoption of these tools has not always been easy or effective in the industry. And so, we're seeing that a lot, because a lot of clients are looking at the digital dexterity, if you will, of their advisor force. And again, this is an area which I think is the major challenge. So I think these are the main challenges, rather than maybe just the technology itself.
Chris, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because adoption of technology within organisations has been a little bit of a puzzle for firms. It hasn't always been the case that good technology has been employed or deployed well across an organisation. Does something like automation further confuse, or can it be pushed into organisations without meeting resistance?
I think, as in every technology, especially every new technology, there is sort of risk and there is opportunity, and it's down to how it is utilized and deployed. And yes, automation can be can confuse things, but I think the absolutely stronger argument is towards an opportunity. And Ian referenced dexterity there, especially in the digital space, and I think the whole industry is much closer to being comfortable with using new tools and use them more wisely. And that's where vendors and consulting experienced consultants come in to assist with this journey, in the sense that from our point of view, from a vendor point of view, our job is to make sure that we have designed and built something that is relevant to the businesses that are going to use it, and make sure that it is easy and it's graceful when deployed, and doesn't mix things up, and makes the journey, makes our customer experience, the experience of our customers better, and the experience of their customers better. Now, scale is another element in this puzzle, in this equation. Often, sort of not often operations or businesses that don't have the resources traditionally to deploy big IT or to have a lot of consultants or a lot of internal staff have shied away from things like automation or machine learning or AI or tools that can make their life easier and their business more valuable. That's not the case anymore. And again, from our point of view, from a vendor point of view, from profiles point of view, we've done a lot of work to ensure that journey is much more graceful and much more approachable to our customers.
Yep. Both, I wonder if we could just switch this now to opportunities. From some of the automation players I've seen in the market, that the ROI points that they claim are significant. Ian, I wonder, from an opportunity perspective, where you think wealth managers will be focused, or where they should be focused. They bring in automation in a particular part of the business, or through their business if they think more strategically. What benefits will they realise, and is there an order to those benefits?
Well, I think the two big areas are improving client experience. So I mentioned before, the client base is changing, so there's a tremendous opportunity, if you will, to take advantage of that. I mean, the thing to remember is that the wealth industry is still very attractive. It's one of the most attractive, fastest growing segments in financial services. And within that, the different client segments, many of those are growing. Some are maybe less faster growing or eroding. So it's that ability to manage that client transition in your favor. And the second thing is to give clients what they want, which basically is a combination, I think now is a combination of probably two things. Well, three things probably. It's impact, it's yield, and I think it's new ideas. So the other area, that would be a big area of focus will be the portfolio management systems, because as I mentioned before, the asset class diversification is there, and obviously there's the whole ESG, responsible investing, and impact investing area as well. So those would be the two areas. So if you like, the focus is shifting a little bit from the back office, the operational side into the front and the portfolio management area. But of course, what you need to do also is you need to automate front to back, as we mentioned before, and then underpinning everything is data. And data will move from data as we have it now towards more data insights as the technology evolves around us. And so what you're going to see is a progressive automation, if you will, of the front to back. And the automation is going to be, largely driven by the advisors and the portfolio managers, if you see what I mean.
Interesting. Okay, Chris, anything to add to that? I mean, would you concur? Would you add further elements of the benefit and opportunity?
Yes, I would absolutely concur to this. And I can think of another area that I could add to, and it's time to market of new products. Again, very interesting from the point of view of the manager, because as Ian mentioned, there are new demands, new ways of investing, new types of asset classes, different types of asset classes with different characteristics that are accessed in different platforms, digital or not digital, mostly digital, and developing a new product and bringing it to market is really important these days in terms of adapting to what the voice of the client is. Again, another element that Ian very wisely referenced. The clients maybe ask, the demographics are changing, the profiling is changing, so being able to quickly and effectively respond or being proactive to these trends and pressures or opportunities, that is a big advantage in my view. And that advantage can be enabled by technology. It can be enabled by automation.
I wonder in some of the terms that get thrown around in terms of RPA and ML and AI, which of those tools apply here? I mean, is it all of them? And if so, can you give me some examples of where and how they fit in? Chris, to you first, if possible.
I think all, but with a very strategic and careful sort of approach. They can all be applied. Cloud is pretty much these days if not a given, something that is a very strong trend, and it's a requirement from many angles, both the manager, the technology, and the end client. At the end of the day, machine learning and artificial intelligence are huge areas in the technology world that can absolutely offer opportunities and advantages in this space, in the wealth management space. But in my opinion, when applied and utilized carefully and in a very focused and strategic way, not just for the sake of doing it, which can get you into digress into a journey that may not be that advantageous for your business. Robotic process automation and business process automation, I think, would apply in many areas, front, middle, back office as well, and would allow the release of resources, the reduction of human error. So yes, all, but carefully and wisely and gracefully.
Yeah, great. Ian, and anything to add? That you mentioned cloud earlier. Could you provide us a bit more detail on where these tools, these technologies come into play? So RPA, AI, big data, machine learning, cloud, the whole gamut here, right?
Yes, I mean, well, I think the most important thing is you know to say that every wealth manager is different, and they're all at different evolution points. So first of all, I think the most important thing is to benchmark where you are and to work. I mean, once you benchmark the different areas of your business, you're pretty much going to get a prioritization or a focus, because you can't do everything, and we don't have all the resources in the world. Now, in a sense, there's the technology is out there. There's almost anything you could possibly want is there. So the skill really is to identify those gaps from the benchmarking and then get the focus, and then it's typically a phased approach. It's never, in our experience, a good idea to do a big bang unless you really have to do a big bang approach. So, something's come to the end of its life and you left it too late or whatever. But generally, we see people moving in three broad stages. I mean, the first is to get the foundations right, and these are the foundational technologies. Now, as I said before, they will differ, but typically foundational technologies will be things like a good client relationship management system. It could be a good advisor tool set. It could be a good portfolio management system, and then to have a modern platform. And when you look at it, the big shift in technology is towards adoption of the cloud. Probably for about three reasons. One is it shifts fixed cost to variable cost. The second is, surprisingly, it helps you achieve, well, not surprisingly, I guess, but it helps you achieve your ESG targets, because obviously operating data centers isn't the most efficient use of energy, which can be replaced by cloud. And then thirdly, it's picking up on the point that Chris said. We're going to be in an era where clients are wanting new things, new ideas. I mentioned before, new asset classes. So you've got to be able to develop those products faster than ever before. And the big thing with cloud is business benefit is you can develop those products much faster. Now, obviously, depending on the model, if you're cross-border, there are issues around data security and data compliance and all of that good stuff. But generally the trend is towards cloud, and that's probably the technology that's going to have the biggest impact in the shortest period of time, if you see what I mean.
Interesting. And are you seeing wealth managers, because there have been different geographical, let's say, willingness to engage with cloud? In Switzerland, for instance, they were very reticent for a long time. I think the UK was probably behind Scandinavia. We were all behind the US. Where is the market in terms of its adoption or willingness to adopt cloud for different purposes?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, best practice is in the US, you know, in terms of adoption of cloud, and I think what everyone's seen is the benefits of that have been delivered by cloud. And if you look at some of the margins achieved by those US players, you can see it translates through to what I would call, you know, significantly enhanced business value. So, I mean, that's the prize. Now, you know, it's easier to adopt cloud for a domestic you know, wealth management operation than it is for a cross-border one. You kind of mentioned Switzerland. So, you know, I think everybody, I mean, what we're seeing is people, you know, wealth managers are adopting cloud. There's increased adoption of cloud. There are still issues to overcome, you know, particularly as you referred to correctly in some of the international centers, you know, like Switzerland. But generally, you know, that's being progressively, I guess the way to put it is it's being progressively overcome. And you can actually implement it in Switzerland. There are ways of doing it, and you know, there are early movers. So I don't see any reason why. I think it's going to be down to a mindset issue and a cultural issue, but I mean, because of the business value that gets delivered, we're on that path. And you know, I think you know, increasingly wealth managers will move to the cloud. If they don't, you know, the chances are they'll get left behind. They'll be the laggards rather than the leaders in the competitive set.
And if I may add something here, because that's I think Ian is touching a really interesting point. But let's look at it from the flip side. Okay, it's not, in my opinion, it's not only the just you know, the client side, the wealth managers that feel the sort of the need to adopt sort of cloud technologies or automation technologies. It's also the technology industry that is looking to come closer to the end clients, to the wealth managers in this case. So challenges of the past, for example, that you cannot you know, move your data out of Germany, or you can move your data out of Switzerland. If you were running a multi-geography operation, you had security and compliance challenges. The cloud industry, technology industry, the vendors, companies like Profile, for example, they have we've made a lot of effort, and we've come up with new approaches and new solutions to address these real issues and get closer, from our point of view, to the end client. So it's not just a push from, you know, the wealth management side. It's also from the technology side to come closer to their clients, right? And the Switzerland example is a great example there.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's incumbent, isn't it, on the solution providers to also lead the market and educate the market and where things to go, and they need to make sure that they are pushing at the boundaries in terms of technological innovation and capability. Chris, one question for me here is, because automation is so potentially broad across an organization, front to back, so many different applications, who owns it? So who within a wealth manager makes the move to bring in automation and to push automation across the organization, considering these silos, considering maybe big firms, considering so many different applications? Where does the term automation kind of sit, and where is it owned within an organization?
That's a great question, and I think there's not one single answer to this question. I think the answer would be twofold. Okay, the ownership is always with the business. The technology side can be an evangelist and can be an enabler and can be the change maker, but the ownership of any initiative and any automation focused solution is always better to be with the business, because you can measure KPIs, you can measure outcomes, you can measure costs in terms of business terms in this case. So if the technology people, the technology team, are the drivers that are raising their hand, saying, "Okay, we can do things better in this business, in our day-to-day business." The first thing they need to do is make it straightforward, simple, or obvious to the business owners that there is benefit to their day-to-day operation, to their customer experience, to their value add, and then it will work. If there is misalignment there, I think it's a bit more of a challenge.
Yeah, Ian, what's your view on that? And thinking, I think on previous conversations we've talked maybe about C-suite ownership, right? Someone needs to, take control at the top level of these kind of topics. Is the same true of automation?
Yes, because it's fast becoming a C-suite issue, and there's probably two reasons for that. One is we mentioned this shift from silos to front to back. So the front to back view is a C-suite view. So that you have to have a vision for the front to back of the business that you probably could have not necessarily had to have in the past. You could have run it in silos, but those days are going. And I think the second thing is that, as you rightly pointed out, there's so many different technologies that the C-suite needs to be convergent or conscious of all of those different technologies and the impacts they could possibly have on their business. And so I think it is very much becoming a C-suite issue. And, we're going to see more of that. And then the C-suite drives the vision of the business going forward, which then informs the technology providers, as we just mentioned.
Yeah, and Chris, to you, given that point, there are so many technologies in the market, and of course, from the wealth manager's perspective, there are so many parts of the process that could be automated. So who delivers automation? I mean, is it one vendor? Is it multiple vendors working together? What does the mosaic look like in terms of delivering an automation environment to the end wealth management clients?
If one can work with one vendor, is in some ways it's an advantage. There is a multitude of vendors that offer slices or parts of the automation capability and journey. However, being able to have a trusted advisor, supplier, partner in this will make your life easier as a business. That's a global sort of experience across the industry, not just in wealth management. I hope I'm answering your question there, because this is a very big topic in terms of how to patch together the technology stack or the technology sort of tools to run a business. Obviously.
Yeah. Okay. And what's your experience in terms of how firms actually deliver automation? Are they relying on the systems that they have already? Are they developing things in-house to make sure that the processes are bound between them, or are they bringing in externals, whether they be consultants or tech vendors?
Well, I think what we've observed is two things. I think the how they approach it is changed, and the way to change has changed, if you see what I mean. So the how is very much, start with the benchmarks. Where have you got the biggest gaps? You then focus, and then you phase the implementation. So your choice of technology is very much driven by the benchmarking and the gaps. You can't cover everything. So what you're looking for is where's the biggest challenge, where's the biggest opportunity, and get that focus in, and then you phase it, because you learn as you go. And the way to change is much more important. That's changed completely, because now it's around things like design. You have to have a good design authority that translates the business vision into what the technology has to enable. And you also, you're looking at client design, user experience, advisor, user experience and client experience, user experience. And then you're looking also at agility. And the agility part is the way you kind of spin up these changes, which you do in an agile way, because the business is working hand in hand with the IT, and then you're testing it with clients and refining it all the time. So that, I think that's the way forward. And what you see is this approach to change separates the leaders from the laggards, if you will. And, it also actually enables leapfroggers, which are, firms that come in either from a different part of financial services into wealth, or, the fintechs who come in like with robo-advice type models. So the whole way of change is the key, and you do it in this sort of, in the way I've just described. That's the key to success.
Great. I like the term leapfroggers. We might have to put together a report or some sort of content around that. We'll group together the leap. Have you just made that up, or is that sort of a core term that the industry is using?
No, I mean, I think you can see, leapfroggers, in my view, are things like neobanks. They're all around us. They're fintechs. They come in, and when you look at some of the, financial services, some of the market cap valuations, this is leapfrogging. And then, in the US, what we've seen is the investment banks have, suddenly become wealth managers. Some of the largest wealth managers in the US are kind of investment banks. So, these are what I would call leapfroggers. You don't always see them coming, but when they come, boy, do they jump.
Yeah, I like it. I used a term called shapeshifters for a report once, but I think leapfroggers is even better, so good. Gentlemen, we've almost hit the hour. So, Chris, if I can just ask you to provide some sort of summary thoughts of automation in wealth management, where the industry is, what's happening, and where it's taking us. Can you do that?
Absolutely, thank you. I think I'm going to start with the two wonderful points that Ian just made. The way to change and what we see as agility. Because again, as automation, agility is another term that is flying around, and it means different things to different people. But let's take this message that the opportunities presented by the technology platforms and the automation opportunities that we have give us the chance to change the way we deal with change, the way we work, our ways of working, and adapting and learning along the way, doing it in controlled chunks, effecting change in controlled chunks that we can contain and manage the risk, understand and improve, and scale up. All these wonderful technologies and all these challenges, be it from the pandemic, from neobanks or leapfroggers, all that wonderful stuff give us a lot of opportunity in terms of improving our business here.
Yep. Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. Ian, finally to you. So why should a wealth manager care about automation? What can you sort of summarize there?
Well, I think what I've tried to say is I think the post-COVID world will be very different from the pre-COVID world, and I think there's no going back. So I think that's the driver for change. I think then what you need to do is benchmark where you are against your industry peers, and then you focus. And I would put a key word in front of automation. I would say it's focus and intelligent automation. And I mean intelligent in the broadest sense. You can't do everything, so the important thing is to be focused, to be systematic, and to build the new capabilities that are required to be this new age wealth manager, which is the fast emerging, I guess you would call it, post-COVID models. Fantastic. Well, Ian at Orbium, thank you very much. Chris at Profile, thank you very much too. For the audience, this session will be recorded and available to review and see again in a couple of hours on the Bright Talk channel, also on our Wealth Mosaic website. Thank you both again very much, and we look forward to hosting another session soon. So wishing you all a good rest of the day. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.